Hello, nest makers. It is the end. This is the end of week one. If you've been with us doing every day for 20 minutes today, just 20 minutes a day, and you too can be a nest developer. This is the end of the first week. So this is day 7. That's so exciting. Just want to go over just real quick where we are with this. We were sort of halfway through this mechanic where we are going to collect a pickup slash power up, and it is going to allow us to defeat the monsters. We made it a custom variable. We wrote a couple lines of script, but nothing too heavy. But right now, what we've got is when I collect it, I get this little indicator up here that lets me know that I am now invincible. I can do other things, like I could try and change the monster's palette and stuff like that. The reason I don't want to do that or change his state or something like that, if I had a different kind of AI for this monster, and I had this monster sort of maybe he was. Oh, I have to reset that when I reset the level, right? I have to reset that to 0. Maybe he was changing states to run and walk or jump or shoot fire, and his action was changing. I'd have to make duplicate states for every single condition if he was if I was invincible, right? So I'd have to make a state for him running while I was invincible and standing when I was invincible. Then I have to do a whole bunch of if statements. I don't really want to get into that. It's totally possible we could do that. I can show you how to do that. Right now, that's beyond the scope of what I want to do. We just want some kind of indicator, which this will serve as. But I do need to go into my my reset scripts, my game loss and my reset scripts when I load the screen, and tell it that I want invincibility to be set back to 0. And that's something I totally forgot about. So let's fix that real quick. I'm going to go into my project settings. Oops, I keep showing up on the other screen. I apologize. Script settings. I'm going to scroll down to that tile where I get hurt, which was this player hurt. And I'm going to hit edit. We had already sort of made some edits to this script, if you remember. And we had done this to warp to the lose script. I'm going to do one more. What I need to do is if I don't warp to the lose script, this will actually, no matter what, you know what, no matter what, if I get hurt, no matter what, the first thing I want to do is I want to set that vulnerability to 0. So I'm going to load 0, 0, and this is going to load into the accumulator the number 0, and I'm going to store what's in the accumulator into the mailbox called monster vulnerable, and I believe that's how I spelled it. So no matter what, when I get hurt, it's going to set this back to vulnerable, which means my vulnerability is not going to show up on the screen anymore. Whether I die completely and I go to the you died script, or whether I just am restarting on the level, now I'll have to re-get my power up. So if I get this and then I die, you can see it went away. I get this, I die, but that's only for the tile. So let me reset it real quick. Okay. So now if I get it and I hit the monster, I don't lose it because that was a different script. So I need to go to my script settings, and I'm going to go down. If you remember, we made a custom hurt player script right here in common, and we can see we had player hurt base mine. Awesome. So if we screw this up, we can always go back. The first thing I'm going to do here before I do anything else too, I'm going to load into the accumulator the number 0 and store it into monster vulnerable. Save that. Now, no matter how I die, if there's any other conditions that lead to my death, I'm going to need to do that as well. So now whenever I die for any reason, I'm going to lose my vulnerability. So if I get vulnerability and I run into the monster, first thing that happens is my vulnerability goes away. But that's not necessarily what I want to happen, right? Because if I am vulnerable and I run into the monster, I want him to go away. And that's what we're doing next. So this is actually not what I want to do, is it? So I'm going to actually erase this in the monster base. That worked, but that's not what I want to do. So in my player hurt maze base mine script, which if you need to get to it, I'll give you a second, but it was here. Script settings, down into common if you'd closed it, and it's the first one in common. It says handle player hurt, edit that. All right, so I got rid of that. I just added there. I do want to keep it in the tile script, but if a monster hurts me, I'm going to check to see. The first thing I'm going to check to see is that monster, or do I have invincibility? Because that's going to totally change all this stuff. If I have monster vulnerability, Where I want to start writing some unique code is I want to start writing some unique code right here. And what I want to do, I have to understand where this is actually coming from. So I want to walk you through what's actually happening here. If I'm gonna move away from this. I'm gonna open this up. I'm going to scroll down to the script. It's not important that you do anything with this. It's just important that you know what's happening. So if I go to uh, um, handle object collisions maze space and I hit edit, all right, this is where it's actually doing all the things. And this is where it's doing that script. You can see basically it's checking to see what kind of monster, what kind of object is running into what other kind of object. And if the player is one of the objects and the monster is the other kind of object, it's going to do this do handle hurt player script, which is what is bringing me here. That's what that is. This is the JSR do handle hurt player is this stuff. And when I do that, what happens is I set at the beginning of the script, I have something called self object that gets set. So the player gets set as self object, and the other object gets set as basically the monster that I'm running into. So I can remember that if I need to invoke something about the other object, I can load other object into Xavier, and then I could do something to the other object. And we're going to do that here. I'm going to sort of show you guys how to do this. This checks to see if the player is already hurt. If he's hurt, don't do anything. Before I even do that, I'm going to load my monster vulnerable. And if it's equal to 0, I'm going to don't kill monster. And that's just going to go on as normal. That's just going to get hurt as normal. But if it was equal to 1, this means it is not equal to 0 here, which means I am invincible, right? So that I should hurt the monster. Problem is, I can't do anything to the monster right now because the monster is not loaded into Xavier. I have no way to call him right now. And I'm going to write this script in an easy way to understand. I'm going to add something to it. So a good first practice is I know I'm going to load Xavier, that mailman, with the name of the other monster, the player that I'm running into. But by the time I get out of the script, I need to have Xavier holding on to like he's counting right now. Xavier's got a certain number in his hand right now. Let's say he's got a number 3 in his hand right now. I need to put that down off to the side. I need to have Xavier do a bunch of other tasks. And at the end, I need him to pick that 3 up again. Whatever that number is that he's holding right now, I need it to be restored when I'm done doing whatever corruption I'm doing to Xavier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use something called the stack, which is basically exactly that. It's a place I can hold variables and bytes and then restore them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say TXA. This is going to take X and load it into the accumulator. And then I'm going to push it to the stack, PHA. Push to the stack. At the end, I'm going to enter down a couple lines and write PLATAX. So this pull from the stack, and then I put it back into X. So this took what was in X and put it off to the side. And then I'm going to do a bunch of stuff, and it might corrupt X. And then when I'm done, I'm going to grab it to the top and put it back into X so that X is the same going in to this routine as it is coming out of this routine. Right here is where I'm going to load X with the other object. And that was because my other object right here is being loaded with the monster that I'm running into. Before I jump to this routine, I'm taking the monster that I'm running into, storing it into other object, and jumping into her player. And now that X is in other object, I can say I want to I want to get rid of that object. So if I look at my macros, and you don't have to do this with me. I'm just going to show it to you real quick. Hold on one second. Actually, I'll show it to you in this script, in here. Your macros, if I go to scripts, and I look at define scripts, your macros are all over here. And in fact, what's kind of cool is if you want to see one, like destroy object, if I pull my mouse up, I can actually see the script, and this is what destroy object will do. It'll take the object that's an X and turn it off. All right, so that's what I want to do. I'm going to go back to my script. I want to destroy object. So this is going to destroy whatever is in the other object. And then, you know what? I don't want to do, so I've corrupted X and then I put X back. I don't want to do any of this stuff because honestly, if I kill the monster, I don't want to continue on with losing lives or anything like that. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to skip hurt. So I'm going to right here before after I've killed the monster, which is right here, I'm going to jump to skip hurt. I might even want to give myself some points or something right here, which we could look at in a second. So let me check and see if that'll work. So now, if I run into the monster, I should die. And I do. Now, let me get invincible for a second and run into the monster. And let's see, does he kill the monster? I do. So now we have a cool way to get sort of an invincibility power up and take care of the monster. It's not fun if it lasts forever, right? And it's not fun if it only happens once. So maybe I want like it to appear on the screen after every so often. So what I can do, a couple ways to do this. First of all, I want my invincibility to go down after a certain amount of time. So what I'll do is I'm going to go into my project settings. And I need to go to my overflow RAM, which we already learned how to add a variable. I'm going to add another one. I'm going to call it Invincibility Timer, INV Timer. Okay? I can even copy that if I need to. And when that timer goes up, my invincibility will go to 0. But where am I going to keep track of that timer? You know what? A good place to keep track of that timer, because it happens every step of the game, is in that pre-draw script that I did. So I don't see it right here. I must have closed it. I'm going to come into my script settings. And remember we had that one. It was down in game, and it was called Sprite Pre-Draw, and we made our own custom one. I'm going to open that up. And I'm doing all this stuff. Okay? And I even have a condition where this is all the stuff that's happening if I'm vulnerable. So I only want the countdown to happen if I'm vulnerable, right? So this is perfect. What I can do is I can decrease invincibility timer. So this is going to decrease it by 1. I can then load invincibility timer into accumulator. And if it is not equal to 0, if the timer is not counted down to 0, don't reset invincibility. Don't reset invincibility. All right. And now what I could do is this is timer has reached 0. If it's not reached 0, it's going to branch to this piece of code. So it's going to skip over this. If it did equal to 0, it's going to come and it's going to keep going in the code, which is going to bring it right here. And that's where I'm going to say load 0, store into monster vulnerable. So now monster vulnerability will turn off. And I'll be, I'll be hurt by the monster again. Now, maybe this will be too long of a timer. Let's see how long this timer actually is. So right now what we have is when the game starts, when the game is all of our variables, all these get set to 0, okay? The first thing that we're going to do is, so whenever this is invoked, it's at 0. But the first thing that happens is it decreases by 1. That wraps around an 8-bit number all the way to 255. So then it's going to load it. It's 255. Don't reset it. Then the next frame is going to be 254. Don't reset it. The next frame is going to be 253. Then it's going to be 0, and then it is going to reset this. And now it's going to be stuck at 0 until we're vulnerable again, in which case it's going to decrease it. It's going to go to 255. So maybe 255 ticks is too long. It'll be a couple of seconds. Let's see. Let's see how that plays with my game, but it will work. So first of all, do I die? Oops, shoot. I'm going to Control T, so I just worry about my monster hurting me here. Yep, so I die. Now, I get vulnerability. And now I get rid of him. And what we're going to notice, and we just saw it went away. So I'm going to let it go away, and I'm going to make sure that, so I'm going to get this, and, oops, okay, so that must be counting down all the time, which is not what we wanted. So hold on. So now it went away, and now I should be heard again. Okay, great. So let's set this. That's really weird that happened. Let's set this when I actually get it to 255. So when do I actually get it? Well, it's in your prize or your power up script. So if I go to my script settings and I go down to game pickup script. This is the script right here that we said, yep, we're setting 1 to monster vulnerable. Now what I can do is let's load, I don't know, 80. That this is hex value for 128. So that's half the amount of time that we had it lasting. And we're going to store it to Invincibility timer. All right, so now when we collect it, we're sure that it's going to be a certain value. And we should be able to, there we go. And if I do it again, by hitting Control T, it should be the same amount of time. 2, 3, okay. Maybe that's not long enough. So let's do C0. Give it a little bit more time. C0. Give it a little bit more time. And anyway, I also kind of want when it, when the timer goes off, I want it to respawn somewhere, right? Maybe it respawns in the middle of the room after a certain amount of time. So let me add another variable. I'm going to do the exact same trick. Overflow RAM, add something called respawn timer. And at the beginning of the game, that's 0, same kind of thing. So when this goes away, when it reaches 0, that was right in my pre-draw, right? When this happens, I also want to load, I don't know, C0 and store it to respawn timer. And so I always want respawn timer counting down if it's not 0. So the next thing I'm going to do is load respawn timer. BQ skip counting respawn timer. Skip counting respawn timer. Okay, so this means the respawn timer is not 0. It's going to be counting down. So if I reset it, now it's going to do this. And what I want it to do is I want to decrease respawn timer, load respawn timer, so I can check it. B and E, I can skip that again. Now, what this means is respawn timer has gone all the way down. I want to respawn. I'm just going to make it show up in the middle of the screen, which is basically hex position 80 in the X direction, 80 in the Y direction. I'm going to load. I'm sorry, not going to load. I'm going to, I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to do this macro right here. Create object right here. If I look at the arguments for create object, so where in the X value, where in the Y value, which object, and which beginning state. So I'm going to put 80, 80, object number 0, 1, and the beginning state will be 0. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to create object at 80, 80, object number 0, 1, because this would be 0, 0, this would be 0, 1, this would be 0, 2, etc. And actual state 0. And then, let's see. So that should only happen one time, because then it'll be at 0, and then it won't happen here because it'll skip. Now, we might get that out of range error again, because I'm not sure how big this actual routine is, this macro is. So let's take a look at what happens. Okay, good. So now what should happen is, if I get this, it should go away. And then in a minute, it should appear in the middle of the screen again. There we go. So now I have an opportunity to, and we shouldn't see another one appear. It should only ever be one, I think. Let's make sure. It looks like it's only ever one because it only ever sets that number if I lose the invincibility. So now we have this fun thing where I can get all the invincibility right here and get this guy. Uh-oh, I ran out of invincibility just at the last second there. Got him. And then I should have invincibility pop back up. There it is. Awesome. So now we got respawning invincibility. So I know that was a little code heavy. Hopefully you were able to follow most of that. And I can go here and get to the end of my game. Oh, and we have invincibility spawning on that screen as well because it was 0. So we'd have to figure out a way to make that invincibility not spawn if we didn't want it to spawn and things like that. But did you notice it was the wrong color? If I look at my overworld and I look at that second screen, it was the wrong color because I never set my palettes on that second screen. So I would want to set this to red monster, blue monster, and I'd want to set this to FX, and then it would be the right color. So anyway, that was another day of some hopefully interesting stuff to round out our week. And now, man, I mean, we've got kind of a cool game. All we need to really do is build more levels that get increasingly more difficult. And then we've got to make actual assets instead of these sort of placeholder assets. And we could have a game, we could have something that's actually playable and fun and kind of unique with the power up and whatever. So I hope you guys have been enjoying this, and I'll we'll see what we're going to tackle in week number 2. We're probably going to get more on the creative side of things in week number 2 and start thinking out how to make cool art, how to make animations, and that kind of thing. So awesome. Happy Sunday.